It's time for another video on this pickup truck that we're building, and in today's episode we're going to try and get the whole front end put on this thing. So let's get into it. In the last episode we got the body mounted on this Jeep frame that we're using, and today we're going to put the sheet metal on the front end. And originally I said I wanted to start with this Jeep frame because it'd be easier than building a new frame from scratch, but starting to regret that decision because today we're going to modify the front end of this so much that it probably would have been easier to just start from scratch and build a whole new frame. But struggles is what makes good YouTube, so I guess let's get started. Okay, in an effort to keep my sanity, I'm going to start with something simple. And originally the running boards had this molding that went right here. And these were mounted like this. Alright, I just went ahead and welded up all the original holes from where this piece was bolted on because they were pretty much just slots. And now I'm going to temporarily bolt this into place so that we can get the next part on. Alright, real quick, I just temporarily threw the sheet metal up here just to get a good mock-up, see what it's going to look like. And I can definitely see that there's some stuff in the way that we're going to have to modify, but here's kind of what it looks like. The front of the fender's got to come down just a little bit in the front, and when they come down, that'll make it a little wider. Right now it's about a ½ inch too skinny. I'm gonna have to widen this up in order for the radiator to fit down in the center of it. But for starters, it's hitting this little brace here. That's for, I think, the original grille on the Jeep, but we don't need that. So we'll take that off and see what else we're hitting. All right, after unbolting that, I was able to push the fender down kind of more into position, but you can see that it's pretty tight. It's definitely touching on the inside of the frame rail right here, so I'm going to have to open that up a little bit in order for it to have the correct width on the inside in order to fit the radiator. And I also think I'm going to Z the front of the frame, bring it down some, just so that I have more clearance on the other side for the steering gear and everything else that's going to go on up here. So I'm going to have to modify the front hangers, or shackles, whatever you want to call these. Basically a lot of modifications about to happen, and it probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but it will when it's all done, so I guess let's get cutting. Okay, just cut the crap out of both sides of the frame rails. Now the next thing I'm going to do is make some filler plates to go in here. Alright, this is going to go inside here. Then this is going to go on top. This is going to go here. Alright, got both those sides welded up. Now there should be plenty of clearance for the fenders. They look really good. Here's the other side. I'm going to plate the side of this down here after I finish Z-ing the front of it, but for now I think I'm going to throw the fenders on and see how it looks. Okay, just roughly threw those fenders on real quick, and we definitely have some more clearance inside here. It's pretty hard to see on camera, but the fender is not touching anywhere inside here. If you can see it underneath. Fender's missed. That's not in the final location yet. We're still trying to make some room, but it's definitely looking good. Now the next thing I want to do is Z the front of the frame, and that's going to bring this down so that we'll have more clearance on the front of the fender. I'm still going to have to modify the fronts of the fenders a little bit because the driver's side has the steering gear over there and it's basically touching it right now. But we're going to work around that, so I guess let's Z this frame. All right, just gave the front of the frame the old snip snip, and now it's dropped down a little bit. I'm gonna re-weld this back together, and then we're gonna plate and box this in. Okay, with both sides welded up, we don't want it to look just like that, so we're gonna make a transition that goes from here down to here, and on the bottom from here up to here, just so that it's smoother and looks nicer, and it's gonna be a lot stronger, so let's do that. Bam! Bam! Pow! This is gonna go right here. All right, this piece is gonna go right here. All right, got all that welded. It took a few hours actually, because there was so much welding to do, but we had to reinforce all that since I cut so much of it out of it. I wanted to make it stronger again, but the welds look really nice. Should be plenty strong now. The next thing I'm gonna do is mess with the front of the leaf springs here, and we're gonna redo these shackles. All right, to make this simple, all I had to do was cut down the original shackles, and now they're gonna bolt right through these two holes, and it should work out just perfect. Okay, that was a pretty simple solution to this problem. Now I can get this thing off the jack stands, probably throw the fenders back on it and see what it's starting to look like. All right, just roughly threw the fenders back on. You can kind of see what it's starting to look like. There's definitely some more clearance now in between the fenders and the frame. The next thing I'm gonna do is make a couple of brackets that are gonna hold the fenders on right here. So I just whip some of those up real quick. Okay, to make this easy, I'm gonna use a piece of rectangular tube. It's gonna go on top of here. Just gonna cut it a little bit. Okay, this is what this looks like. It's gonna go up in here. I'm just gonna weld it in place. All right, got those all welded up. Next thing I want to do is throw the fenders back on and then drill a hole through them, and that's where they're going to bolt in place. Here's the driver's side. Okay, those are bolted in place and moving right along. Next thing I'm going to do is try and get these fender brackets mounted. These go up in the front underneath the fenders down here. All right, these little brackets are gonna go right here, and that's gonna hold the fender support into place. So I'm just gonna weld these on. Okay, got those brackets all done. Got it bolted in place, just temporary. The reason we have to use this support right here is because it also holds the headlights. I went and threw those in just temporarily, but that bracket's gonna help support this part right here, make it strong. Now I just gotta repeat the process to the other side. Bam! Here's the driver's side all done. Next thing we gotta do is get this grill mounted. All right, this is the grill shell that came out of the truck. I took the radiator out of it. One, because we're not gonna be using the radiator that was in it. Two, it's super heavy, and trying to work with this thing with the radiator in it, it's like impossible. So right now I just have it temporarily set in there. It's kind of just resting on the edges of the fenders, but that's where the grill shell originally sat on the Dodge when this was just a coupe. But I want to shorten it because if you look down here, there's not a lot of clearance between the diff and the bottom of the grill. And the radiator that we're gonna be using is a lot smaller. So I'm gonna shorten the bottom of this. That's gonna give us clearance for the axle to travel. And also in the future, I'm gonna build a giant steel bumper, and the bumper's gonna have a winch that sits on top of it right here. So you're not gonna see any of this anyway. So we need to shorten this and figure out some type of mount for the grill and the radiator. Ruined. All right, that's all welded up and shortened. Looks pretty good. Took about 4 inches out of it. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do in the future, if I'm gonna re-chrome this or paint it. I'm not sure, but the trucks of this era usually had a painted grill, and like the cars had the chrome grill, but that's a future problem. All right, I'm freaking winded. I just brought the hood in so I could get a test fit, and the thing is heavy. I was dying trying to put it up there. Anyway, I got the hood set up there. It's just temporarily set in place so I could get the grill set in place, because the next thing I want to do is build a cross member that goes underneath the grill, underneath the radiator, and that's going to support the front end of this thing. But I needed to know kind of where the radiator was going to sit, so I just threw it on there to mock it up. But this thing is looking sweet. It's looking like a monster truck right now with this giant wheel gap, but that's gonna change. Once I put the motor in, it's gonna squat a little bit, and then I'm gonna end up running a bigger diameter tire when this is all said and done, so it won't have such a big wheel gap there, but it's definitely looking like a truck now. Okay, I just have a 4x4 propping the grill up, so it's kind of where it needs to be, but next I'm gonna build a cross member that's gonna go from here, under here, and here to bolt that to. Ooh, welcome to the inside of my Ford. I just want to show you real quick. I got almost a perfectly straight shot from the steering box all the way up to where the steering column is going to be. So that's going to make the steering shaft super easy to run in the future. But this cross member that I'm about to build is going to have some clearance around it for the steering shaft. All right, the concept has changed since I started making this. Originally it was just gonna weld in a cross member, but it's gonna make it a lot easier to pull the engine in and out if this cross member is not in the way, so I'm making it so that it can bolt into place. So I'm gonna bolt this together and then weld the tabs on the frame. Not a 5/8. I got it. If I got 1 subscriber for every time I took this front end off and put it back on, I'd have a silver play button right now. Basically, I'm just setting the front end back on here so that I can build a mounting point for the grill. Idiot. Ow. Toes. All right, here's that cross member all welded up. If overkill was a cross member, this would be it. This thing is 1/4 inch plate, 1/4 inch thick square tube, and all kinds of rainbows on it. If getting it hot makes it stronger, it's definitely gonna be pretty strong because thing's hot. Next, we're just gonna put this back in and drill some holes in it. Okay, just drilled a couple holes in that cross member and bolted it back into place. Next, I'm gonna put some more of these rubber bushings on it. And the radiator shell is going to sit on top of those. All right, that's how the radiator shell is going to sit in there. It looks pretty good. You can see there's plenty of clearance between the diff and the bottom of the radiator. I don't think we'll ever use that much travel. On the inside, you can see I've got a clear shot still all the way to the steering gear where the steering shaft's going to come through, and should have plenty of room for that. The new radiator that I got should fit in here perfect. I'm not going to put that in right now. I'll save that for a later time, but that's how this is gonna look. Okay, there is one last thing I wanna do before I round out this video. If you look inside the fender here, between the fender and the frame, there is a opening where you can see into the middle of the frame, and I don't like the way that looks. So I'm gonna make a little filler panel that goes inside there on both sides. That'll complete the look of the front end, I think. All right, I'm thinking something like this. All right, got those welded in. I'm gonna finish welding it completely once I take this thing apart and get it ready for paint, but I don't wanna do that right now. These will look a lot better once they're black also, but for now they look really good. I ended up doing the other side at the same time. So I guess that's what it's gonna look like. I threw the front end of the headlights on just so you could get a better look at it, but it's looking pretty sweet. So that's gonna be it for this one. I know this video was kind of all over the place, but it was all things that needed to be done in order to get the sheet metal sitting on the front of this thing. The reason I had to put the sheet metal on is because in the next video, I'm gonna try and put the engine and transmission in it. I don't think I've said what the engine and transmission are, so if you have any guesses as to what we might be putting into it, leave a comment below and see if you're right. Are we gonna put a Hemi in it? Are we gonna put the original motor back in? Maybe it's gonna be an LS. I don't know. You're gonna have to make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss it. And I guess that's gonna be it for this one.